funds. We have to investigate. We have no choice. It's our duty to investigate these allegations, our duty to you, Texas taxpayer. Oh, really? Then tell me why you had absolutely no problem spending way more millions of our dollars than you would have to just settle the suit. Hey, welcome to Come and Take It. Remember, those of you who are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, like this video. Those of you who are listening on audio podcast, you're already there. Just go leave a little rating, 5 stars. Obviously, we deserve no less. And make sure to leave us a review if you like this content. So last week, we talked about the gross abuse of power in the Texas House. And I just kind of want to piggyback off of that because I was just reading some headlines the other day and I was like, holy crap, it is so hard to believe that we just recently passed the 1-year anniversary of one of the most momentous occasions in the Texas legislature, which is, of course, the acquittal and vindication of our state's Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Now, I talked about the impeachment scandal at great lengths as it was going on. I tried to cover it as much as I could, even on my national platform, because the national implications that would have had, should it been successful, would have been tremendous. And I seriously consider that. The entire process, the rushed process, the secrecy, everything that the Texas House engaged in this particular issue was one of the greatest betrayals in Texas history.
We're Americans. They betrayed their country.
Because essentially it was, of course, the Texas House's betrayal of the Texas voter. I mean, they tried to override the will of the people that we had just spoken by way of our ballots, like months previously. It was just mere months previously. And they were like, nope, you know what? We don't care, right? We the people voted for Ken Paxton as our choice, the people's choice for AG. And the Texas House said, no, actually, we wanted the Bush candidate. And we don't like it that the true conservatives won out. And so we're just going to do whatever we can by hook or by crook to get this guy out anyway. Screw you, Texas voter. I mean, that's essentially what they told us, right? And I know I talk about this issue a lot, and some of you may be thinking, Sara, okay, you just mentioned it's been over a year now that this has happened. It's time to move on. See, here's the thing. I personally would love to move on, okay? I would love to move on from that ordeal, knowing that the Speaker of the House in Texas, drunk Dade Phelan, and all of his impeachment bros have actually learned something, okay? That they've come to terms with their poor decisions and realized what a sham it was, what an abuse of power it was. They realized that they can't mess with Texas voters ever again, right? Just some sort of lesson that they've learned that they would do differently next time, that they've held themselves accountable in any way, shape, or form. But the problem is they have done exactly the opposite. See, 2 days, I'm telling you this because it's been a year now, okay? And it still hasn't happened. But 2 days after the acquittal of Ken Paxton, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, here in the state of Texas, sent a letter to the state auditor's office requesting a special audit to determine how much of our taxpayer money was wasted on this sham. You don't think about it, right? You don't think about, oh, resources were utilized, lodging was utilized. Do you think that those attorneys that they used, that they talked about all that, oh, we've got the greatest attorneys of all time on the Texas House's side. Ken Paxton doesn't stand a chance. Well, Ken Paxton was forced to use his own money to pay for his legal representation. The Texas House actually used your money to pay for those infamous attorneys. They used your money for all of that. So, yeah. Has it been over a year? Yeah. Is it time to move on? Yeah. But not until we have a proper accounting of however much of your money and my money they wasted in this total impeachment sham, and it didn't have to be this way. Okay? So Dan Patrick sent that letter 2 days after the acquittal. Let me read you a little bit of it. All right? He says, To be clear, the goal is to determine the absolute total cost to the state of preparing and conducting this trial from the beginning through its conclusion. This must detail all expenses, including but not limited to investigators' expenses, document production and assembly. There was a ton of documents, attorney expenses, witness fees, travel, food, and lodging. This list is illustrative, not exhaustive. So there may be more that I haven't listed, still need to see it. Please determine and report on all expenses. If there are invoices outstanding, we seek to know when they are and when they will be received. Now, I would say that's a very reasonable request. That's called being a responsible steward of our money. Thank you, Dan Patrick, apparently one of the only guys left in state government who really gets it. This isn't y'all's play money, okay? This isn't monopoly money. This isn't money for you to just play around with to enact revenge on your political opposition, which, by the way, you may be thinking, but the Speaker of the House is a Republican and Ken Paxton is a Republican. What do you mean political opposition, Sarah? Well, here in Texas, we're so dysfunctional that it doesn't necessarily mean the term political opposition doesn't always mean here in the state of Texas that it's a member of a different party, because we have way too many establishment Republicans who hate members of their own party simply for being too conservative. They would rather do deals with the Democrats behind closed doors than band together with members of their own party because they're too conservative. And that's icky. Okay, so they're using our money, like play money, to enact revenge on their political opposition, fellow conservatives. How disgusting is that? Okay, and to that point, by the way, before we get into Dade Phelan's cowardice, to that point, Dan Patrick, obviously as a lieutenant governor, oversees the Texas Senate. Well, the Texas Senate had absolutely no problem turning over their expenses. And it was to the tune of $435,000, almost $500,000 that the Senate spent. Now, their expenses were far less just from the process, right? They did conduct the trial. They were simply reviewing what the Texas House had already passed to them. To their credit, they really had no choice in the matter. Their hands were tied. They couldn't say, no, we aren't even participating in this. We aren't even going to convene. The Texas House tied their hands. They dumped this steaming pile of manure into the Texas Senate's lap and said, here, act. And so the Texas Senate spent the money. Didn't have to be that way. Not their fault. But here, over a year later, Dade Phelan has stonewalled that audit. He refuses to admit how much of our money, my money, your money, do you work hard for your money? I do. I'm sure you do too. Do you want to know where in the world the government is spending your money?
Where's my money?
At all levels, by the way. I want to know how the federal government is spending my money and wasting my money. I want to know how the state is spending my money and wasting my money. I want to know how my local government, how are they spending my money? What kind of pet project bonds do they want to impose on us? Right? By the way, remember, just because it's my personal pet peeve, a bond in anything that you vote for, a bond, if you want to approve a bond, you are just voting to spend more of your money on something. So just remember that. But Dade Phelan is stonewalling a state audit. Would you be able to get away with that? No. If you had an elected official or a state official who came to you and said, under government code such and such, you must produce these documents to me because I am auditing you. Could you just be like, pass? No, of course not. But Dade Phelan refuses to turn over a proper accounting of how much money they spent of yours. Now, earlier this month, Dan Patrick released a statement about all of this secrecy, about Dade Phelan's secrecy. And he said, Dade Phelan has refused to comply with the audit for almost a year now. This was a couple months ago. And apparently he doesn't believe he needs to tell taxpayers how much he spent on the impeachment. I'm not aware of any legislator refusing to tell taxpayers how they spent taxpayer money. What is Dade Phelan afraid to show the public? Millions upon millions of your money spent on high-priced private lawyers who lost the case in addition to his costly state expenses. This guy is the guy who's in charge of the Texas House. Don't let that be, Dan Patrick is talking about the guy in charge. He is in charge of the Texas House. The Speaker of the House is withholding receipts showing how they spent your money. When would that ever be acceptable? There is no case in which that should ever be acceptable, especially here in the state of Texas.
Yeah, that is pretty annoying.
In fact, as I talk about, would you be able to get away with that? Would I be able to get away with that? If a state auditor came to me and said, you must produce these documents, withholding access to documents requested by the state auditor is a crime. It's punishable for by up to a year in jail. So why is that not where Dade Phelan is right now? It's where you would be. It's where I would be if I refused to hand over documents. Throw him in jail. Why not? You think this is a game? You want to throw my money around playing political games and not think that you're accountable to explain to me how you're spending it? What a coward. What an elitist coward. Dade Phelan, you are a coward, okay? Because of what you did was so noble. And you were just following the facts of this investigation. You just wanted to get to the bottom of the truth. You just wanted to pursue justice for Texans. You're just doing it all for Texans, right? If that were really the case and that was how you felt, you should be proud of the money spent. You should be glad to give all of the documents, provide all of the receipts showing the money that was spent on these endeavors. You should shout it from the rooftops if this was all done by you as an honest broker.
That's not going to happen.
Here's something.
And it speaks volumes, Dade, that that's not what you have done, you coward. This is not a small amount of money that we're talking about. I mentioned the $435,000 by the Texas Senate. That is a drop in the bucket compared to what we have learned at least through open records requests. That's the only way that anyone has been able to get any amount of money. And it is not exhaustive. It's the minimum, okay? Open records requests have revealed a cost of at least $4.3 million of yours and mine in the impeachment, including money given to a public relations firm before and after the trial. Again, Dade, if what you're doing is so noble, why would you need a PR firm to help you with optics before and after the trial? It should speak for itself. The evidence should be so overwhelming and in your face that it should have spoken for itself. You shouldn't use our money to hire a PR firm to convince us that what you were doing was right and noble.
I can't believe that I'm hearing this.
That's disgusting. So remember, these famed attorneys that I mentioned earlier, Dick DeGuerin, Rusty Hardin, to lead this prosecution, $500 an hour. $500 an hour for this impeachment sham. Do you guys, if you've ever dealt with attorneys, you know the insane amount of time that something like this would be required for these attorneys, the preparation that they would have to engage in. That's a lot of freaking billable hours, okay? So we know that it was at least $4.3 million. That's the bare minimum. I'm sure they're hiding a lot more. Otherwise, Dade would just provide the receipts and be done with it. Look, here's your $4.3 million. That's it, okay? But I want you to remember for a second the reason why this all came to be, okay? It was a settlement that prompted this entire ordeal. It was a settlement that the Office of the Attorney General wanted to agree to in this whole, we talk about all the whistleblower case. Well, this was a wrongful termination lawsuit that these particular, they're referred to as whistleblowers. I don't think they blew the whistle on anything. It doesn't sound to me like from the trial they know much of anything that they're talking about, but they call them whistleblowers, okay? So these whistleblowers enacted a wrongful termination lawsuit on the Office of the Attorney General. The Office of the Attorney General wanted to settle the suit, presumably because it would cost Texans more money to go through an entire trial, okay? And it was a $3.3 million settlement. I'm not a mathematician, okay? But a $3.3 million settlement versus over now, if you add the Texas House cost and the Texas Senate cost, $5 million? 3.3 versus 5. And it was the $3.3 million settlement that prompted this entire ordeal because all the impeachment bros were like, we just can't spend that money without investigating the matter because we care. We really care about how taxpayer funds are utilized. We're just here for you guys. We're just in it for the little guy. You guys can't speak for yourselves in this. We are your mouthpiece and we care about your funds. We have to investigate. We have no choice. It's our duty to investigate these allegations, our duty to you, Texas taxpayer. Oh, really? Then tell me why you had absolutely no problem spending way more millions of our dollars than you would have to just settle the suit, which was, of course, the Attorney General office's point the entire time. Let's just settle it for the smallest amount of money possible, and we don't waste Texans' taxpayer money on this stupid thing. So you tell me, did they really care about spending $3 million of your money when they turned around and happily wasted upwards of, I believe, $5 million when all is said and done? And since Dade's, again, stonewalling the transparency, we know it's more than that. We just want to be good stewards of Texans' money. That's a lie. And if Dade doesn't want to play by the rules and he wants to hide your and my money in secrecy, he should face the same consequences that a normal person would face should they obstruct an investigation.
Why don't I start? Huh? The simplest way to put it? I have problems.
So, no, I can't move on from this. Because there hasn't even been a proper accounting of this. They are still playing games, manipulating the system, abusing their power. They are still doing it to this very day on this incident. I would love to move on. We can't until we know how much money and until Dade Phelan is held accountable for stonewalling and obstructing and not being transparent with our money. He doesn't deserve to be the next Speaker of the House. He wants to be the next Speaker of the House again. He does not deserve to be the next Speaker of the House. He deserves to be in jail. And that's just for this, by the way. He doesn't deserve to be Speaker of the House when you just look at this isolated incident. That's not even factoring in all of the other issues that he has. His unwavering support of assigning key committee chair positions to Democrats. That is his position. He is unwavering in it. He says he will do it again in a heartbeat because that's just the way he thinks things should be run in the Texas House. How about his abuse that I covered the very last podcast? His abuse of using of your taxpayer money by using private jets meant for state purposes for personal matters. How about killing some of the most important bills coming from the Texas Senate? You don't even let it come to the floor for a vote. You want a ban on CCP, on the Chinese Communist Party, owning Texas land, or Russia, or any other foreign entity? You want a ban on that? Seems pretty reasonable. Well, it never even saw the light of day in Dade Phelan's Texas House. The Texas Senate passed it. So, bare minimum, drunk Dade does not deserve to be the leader of those who go to Austin to represent us and our interests. He does not deserve that. Okay? He's not an heir to a throne. You have to earn that. And he has done the exact opposite.
Are you worried about your kid's future? You should be. I'm Charles Blaine with Texas Tomorrow. This is a show where we're going to talk about the issues and the people that are pushing the policies that concern your family, your home, and your kids. Catch Texas Tomorrow every Thursday.
Now, good news is he's going to have a fight on his hands because apparently the latest is that all of Dade's challengers for Speaker have decided to coalesce around one of them and all band together so that they can all defeat him. His name is David Cook of Mansfield. Now, full transparency, would he have been my pick? No. But do I think that like a trained monkey would be better than Dade? Yeah. At this point, my opinion is that I will just have to trust all of the more conservative members and incoming members of the Texas House, the new makeup of the Texas House, the more conservative members. I'm just going to have to trust that they properly vetted this guy and that he has been put on notice what will be acceptable and what won't be acceptable. And just like at the federal level, you're going to make promises to me. And if you break those promises, you're out. Your time is up. Or at least your time is limited and you will be put on notice that this is going to be a one-time thing and you're going to be very embarrassed until it's over because we will be calling you out every single time. So just so we're clear, by the way, because this seems to be, it's like strange that we have to say this in this day and age. When we're talking about things that are and aren't acceptable, getting drunk and incoherent on the Texas House floor, not acceptable. Looking at you, Dade. So you want me to move on? Okay. I say, let's move on. I agree. Let's move on. Problem is, we can't until we have full transparency from these swamp creatures. And Dade Phelan is at the top of the list of people who should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And when that happens, I am happy to move on. Thrilled to move on. Actually, with all of the impeachment bros put on notice that this can never happen again. And they should feel so embarrassed and ashamed that they wouldn't even dare. That's what needs to happen in order to move on. Love to hear your thoughts on the matter. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what you think on the matter, and we will see you next time on Come and Take It.